Hey everyone, it's Dhriti and welcome to Digit. Unless you've been living under a rock, it's likely that you've heard about Dolby Atmos, usually used to up the immersiveness of a film with cinematic surround sound. But did you know that this format can be used with music as well? Dolby Atmos music is designed to make you feel like you're inside the song. So today, we're going to have a conversation about Dolby Atmos for music to learn more about the technology, its use cases, and how best to experience this 3D audio format. To do that, we have with us Mr. Pankaj Kedia, Managing Director at Emerging Markets, Dolby Laboratories. Hello, Mr. Pankaj. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your show.
Great. Now let's get started. First off, can you tell us what exactly Dolby Atmos for music is and how it makes a difference in a user's listening experience?
Sure. So Dolby Atmos for music is a new way of creating music and a new way of experiencing music. And the few things that it does for you as a listener, it reveals, new details in the music that we had not heard about. It might be certain instruments, certain riffs, certain, percussion beats, or even just maybe the singer breathing into the mic. So there are details that we've never heard in song. Maybe it's some of our favorite songs, we've not heard those details. They will be revealed. The second part is there is incredible amount of clarity and detail and separation between the different elements of the music. And what we see that what it ends up creating from an experience perspective is it's a richer experience, a much more stronger emotional connect. But essentially the very fascinating thing that we find is it tends to bring the audience or the fan closer to the artist. So the sense you get is that it's as if you're sitting in that studio when the song was being recorded. So in a certain way, it brings fans and artists closer. So it's just a fantastic new way of both creating music for the artist and the people who are mixing the songs. There is a new way of doing things, the new techniques being used, and then for the listener, it's a new way of experiencing, whether they are going to be experiencing it on their mobile or on their PC or in their living room home theaters, and in future even in cars. So that's what Dolby Atmos music is.
All right, great. Can you also delve into some of the technicalities of how Dolby Atmos music actually works?
Sure. So we'll talk about the creation bit and the experience bit on two parts. So from a creation perspective, what we do with Dolby Atmos music is we provide new tools and new techniques to people who create the music, the artist, the producer, the mixing engineer who puts the whole piece together. And what it does is, with these new tools and these new techniques, it takes away a lot of the limitations that have been there in creating music. Essentially music, the way it exists today is in stereo, which is, two channels of sound. And there are a lot of significant limitations and constraints actually that what you can do with it, because you want the vocals to be heard, so you can't really make a lot of instruments more stand out because the vocals would get drowned. So there's a lot of constraints. Now, in Dolby Atmos music, what they are doing is essentially they are creating the song in a completely three-dimensional, there's a sphere around you. It's actually a room that they create the song in, and they can place instruments and sounds as individual objects around the listener. And they can move it around very precisely also. So not is only the placement very precision, but also the movement is very precision. And so that's from a creation perspective, which this does mean that, people who are creating the music, if they're doing it in a studio, there's some additional speakers required, but if they're doing it on headphones, then they can even mix it on headphones. So there are various ways of creating that music. Now, coming to the experience part from a consumer perspective, one of the most common use cases of listening to music is, headphones with the mobile. That's predominantly, and then you have PCs and living rooms to follow that. But from a mobile perspective, Dolby Atmos music works with any smartphone that is Atmos capable, and with any pair of headphones. So it's not headphone dependent. So whether you're using a Bluetooth headphone or a wired headphone or the earbuds, it'll work with all headphones as long as your mobile device is Atmos enabled. And today we have almost every manufacturer, every leading manufacturer, which includes Atmos capability into their smartphones. So if you look at Apple, it's in all their smartphones. In case of Samsung, it's widely deployed across all of their portfolio. You have Xiaomi, Oppo, Huawei, OnePlus. A huge number of brands are including Dolby Atmos. I mean, globally, we are shipping. There are more than 1 million phones being shipped every day with Dolby Atmos music capability. And also in India, we see a large number of devices available. And the interesting thing in mobile is we tend to upgrade our mobile very frequently, every 18 months, 24 months. So, if you don't have it today, then your next phone should have it. So make sure when you're buying a phone, then you look for Dolby Atmos capability on that phone. And that combination, so if the song has been created in Atmos and it's available on the streaming service in Atmos, you can then play it back on an Atmos mobile, and you either use the onboard speakers, or you can put on your favorite pair of headphones and get the full Atmos experience. And what you will experience is not just sound coming from 2-point sources, but the sound is going to come from all around you. So it's as it's called immersive music, it will immerse you in the music. So it's like a song bath, or it's just the whole thing happening around you. And it also, from a technical perspective, it widens what we call the sound stage. So it's a much bigger sound stage you're hearing. And the sound is right now coming from left here or right above me or behind me. So you get that very real world experience as if you're sitting in the middle and this whole band is, playing around you. So it's a fantastic experience. I mean, we've seen a lot of social media, comments when people hear Atmos music, and the most frequently that we hear, it's the new way to experience music, and you can never go back to stereo. That's the most common thing that you always hear about. So we hope that Atmos will be the new way of creating and experiencing music, for everything in the future.
Great. So now Dolby Atmos for music was showcased at CES 2020. Since then, what are some of the improvements that have been made to the technology, and how can you delve into that?
Sure. So there's continuous improvement being made to all our technologies. I mean, Dolby is a company that is, innovation is at our core. I mean, that's our core principle around innovation. So we're constantly inventing and improving things all the time. So yes, from music as such, as an initiative, we've looked at it for many years, and we've tried it in different forms, as more in terms of early stages. But we brought Atmos music to market, as you said, in CES 2020. We showcased it, and we had a couple of services that were at time delivering that in the US, Tidal and Amazon Music, and now with the launch of Apple Music, it's become much more mainstream. It's available across the globe. It's available, it's much more accessible for people. Now, the improvements that have happened have been on multiple fronts. Now, on the creation side, there have been significant improvement in the tools. Because in Dolby, whenever we create any technology, we always put the content creator in the middle of it. We create a technology around the content creator. So as we've engaged with new artists and more content creators, and as we've gotten feedback and inputs from them that, hey, this could be improved, this could be better, so we've constantly improved the technology in terms of the creation. Also, what has happened with these, with the pandemic-induced lockdowns, a lot of the studios were not accessible. So people were actually mixing music at home. And that meant that there was a lot of mixes being created on headphones, vis-a-vis because, the homes are not fully set up with a large number of speakers. So the mixing engineers had to work at home instead of being able to go into the studio. So that has meant that there has been improvement also on the headphone mixing side, on those capabilities as to how can you get a better, understanding of how to mix the song with the headphone experience. So on the creation side, there has been significant improvements. And at the same time, on the playback side, so the technology, the software that goes into the devices, let's say mobile phone, that has constantly been improved and refined. So there's something called the virtualizer and the renderer, which takes an Atmos song and then renders this experience around the head. On you could be listening to it on headphones or or any other device, or on a home theater system or on the onboard speakers. So there have also been a lot of improvement on that virtualization and rendering side. So what happens is that there is a much more accurate translation from creation to playback. So what you are hearing is exactly the way the creator has created it.
That's great. Okay, so what are some of the tools and devices that a user will need on the user side in order to experience Dolby Atmos music?
Sure. So as I was saying, there are kind of 4 listening use cases that we think about from a music perspective. There are more, but from a predominant perspective, there is the mobile experience, and that could be headphones or onboard speakers. Interestingly, we do find a lot of data that shows us that listening on onboard speakers is much more than people think it is. Some services report that it's up to 50% of their listening is on onboard speakers. So it's an important use case. Yeah. So in the case of mobile, you need an Atmos compatible mobile phone, and very, very easy to find it. Most manufacturers will give you the option. In fact, most manufacturers have a wide range of devices available with Atmos, and they don't have to be the expensive devices. We see enough devices in the market starting at 10,000 rupees onwards. So it's very accessible. So you need an Atmos compatible phone. You can use any set of headphones with that. You can use the headphone that comes along with the phone, or you can upgrade to a better one. Again, it's not headphone dependent, but yes, each headphone performs very differently. Correct. As you know, it has its own frequency response, its own tonal profile. So yes, headphones will perform very differently, but from an immersive experience, any headphone can give you that. So that's as far as the mobile experience is concerned. Again, if it's an Atmos compatible phone, so it will also play back Atmos on the speakers. So it's very interesting. This is quite an unbelievable demo when people see it. You can hold a phone right here at the speaker, and it will actually give you the sense the sound is coming from behind you and all around you. Onboard speakers, which are pretty small if you think of it. So what we can achieve even with onboard speakers is pretty incredible. So that's the mobile experience. Very similar for the PC. So you need a PC which is Dolby Atmos compatible, has the capability. So again, you can listen to it on onboard speakers, or you can put on headphones. Someone like Lenovo has a lot of models which has Dolby Atmos capabilities. And there are other manufacturers. Third is the living room experience. Now, in the living room, you could be watching it through a connected set-top box or through a smart TV. All of these streaming apps now have living room apps also, and the streaming services have living room apps also. So, for example, if you had Apple Music on your Apple TV and you had a soundbar connected with it, or an Atmos soundbar, so you can then get the whole Atmos experience in your living room experience also. The fourth is something we are working on. It's a new area for us, is on the automobile side. So, obviously there's a lot of music listening that happens in autos. And that's a very, very interesting area that we are working on to bring the Atmos experience to auto, and the demos that we have done. It's just, people cannot believe how good this sounds and how different and how amazing it sounds. So that's a future thing, but those are the 4 things. But I think from the mainstream perspective, it's the mobile use case, which is the predominant use case. And I think there, essentially, you need a phone that has Atmos capability, and you need a streaming service. Let's say, for example, Apple Music, that is streaming Atmos content. The interesting thing with Apple is they do it on their iOS devices and also now on the Android devices. So irrespective whether you have an iOS or an Android, if you have an Apple Music subscription, you can hear a lot of Atmos music content now.
Okay. So just touching upon this point, are there any other streaming services on mobile that can avail this service?
There are. Globally, there are quite a few services, and it's a growing list. So there are many services across the globe that are streaming Atmos music. And it's a growing list. So you will see many, many more services come up in the future.
All right. So Apple, speaking about Apple recently announced spatial audio with Apple Music with Dolby Atmos music. Can you tell us more about this partnership and what users can expect in that front?
Yeah, so the Apple partnership is a very special partnership for us, and we've worked very closely with Apple for a long time. So Apple has used our technology both on the audio side with Atmos and also on the video side with Dolby Vision for a long time across all of their wide range of devices. So whether it is the iOS phone devices or the iPads or the PCs, the MacBooks, very widely Apple uses them, uses our technologies. So as far as this announcement is concerned, what Apple has done, I mean, Apple Music is one of the leading global music streaming services. And what they have done is they've made a big move in terms of redefining the experience for consumers. Because the music experience for a long time has been unchanged in a certain way. Though, we had the era of CDs, and then with MP3 actually went down. It went much worse because you were then getting low quality music where most of what was recorded would be lost. You couldn't hear it clearly. So we went down to a phase where quality just dropped very significantly. Obviously came with the issues of piracy and all of that. And it's now coming back up where, at least the streaming services are offering you high quality content. And Apple now takes it to another level where they are offering you this immersive experience through spatial audio. And that spatial audio experience is powered with Dolby Atmos music. So all of the spatial audio experience, as far as Apple Music is concerned, is the Dolby Atmos experience. So those artists, those labels who've created their tracks in Dolby Atmos would, on the Apple Music service, will then play back as an Atmos experience, as a spatial music experience on Apple.
All right. So does Dolby Atmos Music support lossless audio via Bluetooth? And if yes, for what platforms?
So lossless and Atmos are kind of separate things. There could be some overlap, but essentially they are two different things. Lossless primarily is from an compression perspective. It's not it's compressed, but there is no loss in the perceptual encoding in terms of the information that is there. There is nothing being lost from an encoding perspective, from a compression perspective. Whereas Atmos is very different. Atmos is from an experience perspective. It's a three-dimensional immersive experience from a music perspective. So what you hear is sounds from all around you, precision movements of sound, precision placement of sound, and this whole experience of being immersed, and then you're feeling like being in the studio or hearing it live or feeling closer to the artist. So they're kind of different things. So Apple did announce they have launched lossless and they've announced spatial audio. So they're not necessarily the same thing. Now, it's possible you could have the two experiences hand in hand, but they're essentially different experiences. And the one other big difference is from an Atmos music perspective, the songs have to be created in Atmos, have to be mixed with Dolby Atmos. So if they're not mixed in Dolby Atmos, then you cannot get that experience. So it's not available for every song. It has to be those songs which go back and either from the beginning or they go back and recreate it in Atmos.
Okay, so from an India perspective, what are the things people can experience from Dolby Atmos music in India? Are there going to be more platform services? Can you tell us more about the Indian users and what they can expect?
So I think from an India perspective, we obviously have Apple Music now, we have other services, and that list in future we may have other services. But what is most important for me from an India perspective and for our team is really getting Atmos to be used by all the artists and across languages, not just in a type of music or a genre or a language, but across the board, whether it's vernacular languages, it's Hindi or it's South Tamil or Malayalam or Bhojpuri or Punjabi or Northeastern, any language, Bengali, we want to make sure that artists have access to be able to create music in Atmos, and then they have platforms where they can publish their music with Atmos capability so listeners can listen to them. So the focus for us from an India perspective at this stage is really around expanding the content availability. I mean, we've already launched a large number of titles when Apple launched with and leading artists, Mr. Rahman, Amit Trivedi and Divine and Badshah and Kisnuka. So a huge list of artists who are already available with Atmos tracks at launch. And new tracks are being created every day, every week. So the focus really is to expand that and to expand that across languages. Because music is global but very local also.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure whatever music that you listen to, whatever music you love, you should have the option of experiencing that in Atmos. So that's really going to be the focus for us. And I think that's what consumers would be most excited about is, when they listen to that Atmos experience, they're going to want more. And, they don't want to go back to a stereo experience.
Okay, if you're an artist and if you want to create music in Dolby Atmos, what are the steps? What do you do?
So essentially, it is a process at the time of mixing the song. Creating a song has many steps involved, from conceptualizing and programming it, and there are many different steps that are involved in creating music. And it's an amazing creative process with many people involved, and each artist does it differently. But essentially, from an Atmos perspective, when you are mixing the song, when you're putting all the different elements together, that's when Atmos comes into play. And that's when you have to make sure it is created in Atmos, it is mixed with Atmos tools and Atmos technique. Yes, it does. What does happen, and we saw this in the case of, say, cinema and OTT also, is essentially creating something in Dolby Atmos is a process in post-production in the mixing stage. But what does happen is that over time, artist starts understanding this tool much more deeply. Essentially, it's a tool, right? It's a tool, it's a new tool, it's a new brush, it's a new canvas for them. So they start becoming more familiar, and then it starts opening new creative possibilities for them. Because then they'll, in the next song that they create, they'll be like, actually I can do this new thing which I have never been able to do. And in the third one, they're like, I can do this thing more. So it will add to the entire creative experimentation. What we always do is we create these amazing tools for content creators, and then we are surprised with how they use it. We're like, wow, we never thought they could use it like this. And so it's really the artist who then take it, and then they create amazing things out of it. And we've seen that in the case of movies, in the case of television, and now in the case of music, we are looking forward to what people are going to create with this.
Okay, speaking of the tools, are these both hardware and software tools? And can you tell us something more about them?
So, the tools that you need for Atmos is primarily software.
Okay.
So there is a software called Dolby Atmos Production Suite. It's a software renderer that you basically use with the audio mixing software that you're using. Now, the audio mixing software would already have some hardware associated with it. In the studio, or if you're doing it at home on your laptop, for example. So in both those scenarios, that's possible. So if you're in a studio, yes, you may need to add some extra speakers, but if you're doing it on headphones, on your laptop or in your home, setup, then you just do it on headphones. We've actually seen a lot of people, in our markets now begin to create full Atmos tracks on headphones at home or wherever they are. So it's fully enabled. You can absolutely go into a high-end studio and create Atmos music, but you can even do it on your, on your headphone PC setup at home or wherever you're creating music. So it's essentially there's more software, and I think more than it is know-how. And for that, we conduct a lot of training programs, master classes. We are working very closely with IPRS, which is the rights body in India, and so we're working around enablement and training for people, so that anybody can create an Atmos music. I mean, we want to make sure, irrespective of where you are and what you're creating, you should have the option to be able to create it in Atmos.
Okay, so now let's end with any future plans apart from, of course, auto, which you have touched upon. Any other future plans that you can let our viewers know about from Dolby?
And is that specific to music, or are you generally asking wider?
You can just give us a general picture. That's all right as well.
So I think in music, we're just starting. I mean, in terms of, if you look at the genres of music that exist, I mean, beyond entertainment, there is well-being. There are other forms of music, where it goes into other areas, education. So there are a lot of things that can happen with on this side. So we are just at the very start. And we just talked about these few listening cases. The listening cases can increase. They could be expand into more listening cases. So music, I think we're just starting. It's a very early stage. We are doing a lot of interesting work on the audio video side, the AV side, like the television and the OTT and all of that. And they're also bringing that. We've had the Atmos experience available in cinemas, in living room predominantly, also in mobile. But we're also seeing a lot of work now happening in bringing the Atmos experience to AV content on mobile also. So that same experience you can actually get on that. So there's lots going on in Dolby. I mean, it could take me a long time to list out all of the different innovations we are working on. But yeah, I mean, it's our DNA is around innovation. So we are not sitting still. We are constantly innovating and improving things. So I think you will see a lot of interesting things come out from Dolby in the future.
All right. With that being said, I think we're done with all the questions. Thank you so much for answering everything. And we hope our users have gotten all the clarity that they've needed about Dolby Atmos music.